Okay, so I have to go get my pictures for my passport done, so I thought today would be a good day to start recording. You might see different lighting or some things might look a little bit different in the next couple of videos. I'm just trying to figure out what the best setup is. And I've been wanting to do this for a while, so I thought I might as well do it now, if not now, when. So I swear I've been trying to get this done the last 5 years. I'm not sure exactly when I'm going to get done. I have all my makeup laid out in front of me, and it's been a while since I did a full face of makeup. I've been debating doing pretty passport pictures or realistic passport pictures just because I don't know about you guys, but when I travel, I'm usually in like a 4 in the morning flight. I have to be at the airport at 2 and I look terrible. So, but it's a picture and it's permanent. And then I'm going to look back on this and want to see what I look like when I was this age. And I'm not going to want to look crappy. So let's do full makeup. Yeah, let's do that. I'm going to start by bringing my hair up a little bit just because it's going to be in my face. I recently placed an order from the skincare brand that I like to use, and they gifted me a free headband. It looks weird though. I feel like those Victorian era ladies because it comes up way too high and I feel like it doesn't grip enough. Maybe I'll use it for the next video. Okay, if I'm gonna do an eyeshadow look, I like to start with my skin prep. That way I give it enough time to soak into the skin. And while it's sitting, I'll go in and do my eye makeup. A benefit of doing it this way too is that if I have fallout, I can easily just, micellar water wipe it away. Or sometimes what I like to do is if it's not too much fallout, if it's not really dark shadow, I like to apply some more moisturizer and then rub it underneath just to sweep it away without taking everything off and putting it back on. So right now I'm going to use a different one because I think this one's almost out. But this is a Hard Candy Hydrating Primer Mist. It might look a little bit older because it's taken me a while to go through this bottle. If this looks familiar, I actually switched out to the little nozzle from the Urban Decay setting spray. Just because that mister was a little bit better than the one that the Hard Candy comes with. I used to apply it straight to the face, but what I do now is I apply it to my hands. So I'm going to go ahead and spray some on my hand. I go a little bit closer than that usually. I'll spread it and I will start applying it in my face. So really rubbing it in to make sure it gets everywhere. I focus a lot on the nose folds here. I don't know about you guys, but usually when I apply foundation, if my skin is looking dry, that's where I can definitely tell how dry it is because the makeup will just kind of tend to accumulate there. And a little tip as well, before you do your makeup, blow your nose. It's a small tip, but it'll save you a little bit of a headache afterwards because sometimes after I finish my makeup, I'm a little bit congested and I realize I should have blown my nose before, and then you go to blow it and you have some makeup on you and then you have to fix it. So prevention is better than fixing it, right? So blow your nose first and then moisturize. So I do like this because it does leave, it just feels very, very plump, I guess. And I don't know if you can kind of see or hear, but it does leave it not tacky. I wouldn't say it's sticky, but it just feels very moisturized. So I start with a spray, and because I have dry skin, I follow that up with an actual moisturizer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply a small amount. It's probably too much, but that's alright. We like to be moisturized. Pretty much if I'm going to go in with like a full face heavy makeup, I want to make sure my face is very moisturized because my favorite foundation that I like to use if I have something important to go to or an event or a wedding and I want to make sure that my makeup stays and doesn't budge and doesn't transfer as well. That's very important for me, not transferring and getting those little folds, the labial folds. I actually like to use the Estee Lauder Double Wear foundation. I feel like this had its moment in 2016. Maybe some of my makeup you're going to notice is kind of from that era. But it's just so good. And I'm just going to reapply some of that same misting spray. Because that cream that I used has hyaluronic acid, it'll like to hold on to liquid. Something I've heard but has never happened to me, thankfully, is that if you're applying hyaluronic acid, like if you use it consistently and there is no moisture for the hyaluronic acid to hold on to, it's going to pull moisture from your skin. So never happened to me, thankfully. Hope it never does, knock on wood. But I like to kind of sandwich. So I do that first layer of spray, I put on that cream, and then I do another layer of spray. And if I'm going to go out, which I am because I mentioned I'm going to try to do my passport pictures today, I like to apply sunblock as well. And I haven't tested out a lot of sunblocks, but this is one that I have tried and I really like. It's the Neutrogena, if you guys can see it there, Hydro Boost. I use an SPF 50 or higher, just because 30 I feel it's not that much. So again, I'm just going to apply some to my face. And I like to apply my sunblock last. Well, that's not true. I do apply something else after. But just so it's more on the topmost layer and nothing else disrupts it. I do know with some, probably majority of sunblocks, you don't want stuff to move around, right? You want it to protect your skin. And I'm terrified of damaging my skin from the sun, like a lot of us are, and in my attempts of, sorry, I got a hair here, fixing my skin, I use lactic acid and stuff like that. So you just want to make sure you're protecting it, especially if you're going out in the sun. You're supposed to use it indoors as well. I don't, but you should. And I'm just using the e.l.f. Poreless Putty Primer, that beige looking one. And so I'm just grabbing some product here, and I'm gonna put it into the zones that probably require a little bit more attention. So that would be places that have my pores visible, which is typically this area in my cheeks. I put the smallest amount in my forehead, a little bit on my chin, and that's it. I'm gonna go again the same amount. So when this primer came out, I was like, oh my goodness, I've seen so many good reviews about it. I can't believe it's finally here. And I was already scared of running out before I'd even used it. So I made sure to buy enough little poreless primer putty things. I bought, realistically, probably enough for my own lifetime. But yeah, that's probably what I'm going to be using for the most part, unless there's some sort of primer that comes out that you guys want me to test out. I will do that for you, but if I don't mention what primer I'm using, assume it's this one. At the time, I remember Chatty would recommend the Tarte one that was the same color, different packaging, but it was always so expensive, so I was like, I'm never going to be able to try it. And anyways, I got this one. I love it. Keep using it to this day. So yeah, that's for my face primer. Now that the face primer is done, I'm going to go and focus on my eyes. I'm not sure what I'm going to do exactly, but my prep for it is pretty much the same. I'm going to use this MAC paint pot. I remember back when I was watching videos, everyone was using Painterly paint pot, which I thought that was the name, but that's the shade Painterly. That's not the one that I use. I use the one called Soft Ochre. So it comes in this packaging. I'm just going to open up for you guys. So the difference between Painterly and Soft Ochre is that Soft Ochre is definitely more yellow leaning. So Painterly is more pink. I don't have a pink undertone. I have definitely something that's going to be more handy for this. The reason that I like these paint pots, I think a lot of people consider them to be heavy duty, is because they cancel out any type of discolorations or veins that might show up on your eyelids. So as you can see, I'm going to close up a little bit here. I do have a fair amount of veins that show up under my, or on my lids. So with the paint pot, you're going to notice that cancels everything out right away. I don't like to apply concealer as a primer for my eyelids, just because I have seen some videos from other YouTubers, and if I find them, I will try to link them in the description box. But basically, I saw someone, or more than one someone, testing out the difference between using a eyelid primer and a concealer, and there actually was a difference, because I think the consistency of the concealer, it's not meant to be on the eyelid, right? So I can't remember, something about the oils, or sometimes it creased where others it didn't. But yeah, if I find it, I'll share it with you guys. haven't had breakfast yet, so if you hear my stomach making noises, that's just me. And just apply enough so that it cancels out however much you want it to. I also spread it out a little bit here to where I know I'm going to be placing the wing. I bring it towards where the eyebrow starts and I go all the way up to the brow. Speaking of which, my eyebrows are a bit on the thicker side. They have been for the last few months. I know the whole fluffy, bushy brow thing has been trending for like the past year and a half or more. I used to tweeze my eyebrows, but I don't anymore, and I don't know if I want to go back to tweezing them so they look more defined. Some days I'm like, yeah, let's do it, and other days I'm like, that's a lot of work. Alright, so this looks scary, but trust the process. So now that my eyelid primer is in place, I'm actually going to set it as well. You can use any translucent powder. I have been using this, I don't know if this brand still exists, it's called NYC, I'm sure it does. But it's just a translucent setting powder, nothing fancy there. And I'm just going to grab an eyeshadow brush to do this. I'm going to try my best to name the eyeshadow brushes that I use. If I forget, leave a comment, ask me if there's something you want to know. I don't see the one that I want to normally use, so I like to use like a thicker one. This is like a small version of the one I like to use. So this is just the Morphe S404 eye packing brush. It's this one here. I don't know if you can tell, but it is a little bit more on the dense side. The one that I like to use is like an old OG Sephora one. It looks like this, but it's bigger. And it doesn't need to be small just because you're going to be putting that translucent powder all over the lid. So I'm just going to go with my finger over it one more time to make sure I don't have any lines or creases. And I'm going to go ahead and grab some. As you can tell, I'm being very generous because even though it's translucent, you can see it heavily packed on the brush. I'm just going to go ahead and apply it everywhere just to set this. This isn't something you have to do. You could, of course, just do the eye primer and go straight in with the eyeshadow. There's pros and cons to every method. So the pro of doing it that way and not setting is that your eyeshadow will show up more vivid. The con that I find personally is that it might be a little bit trickier to blend out. So especially if you're like beginner, not super comfortable with blending out shadows, you might like to try applying this layer of translucent powder. That way there's kind of like already a powder base for your eyeshadow to be applied to on top, and it doesn't cling and stick on to everything underneath. So I do feel this is a lot easier with a bigger brush. Make sure to bring that next time. And you're just going to want to set everywhere that you put that eyeshadow base. Again, you don't want any parts that don't have it because then your eyeshadow could cling on or it could skip and it's going to look weird. And it's harder to fix. Not impossible, but harder. Alright, so now down to the tricky part. Whenever I'm doing my makeup, I think this is probably the part that's hardest for me. The face typically stays the same unless I'm testing out new products. Picking what eyeshadow look I'm going to do. As I mentioned, this is going to be for my passport, so I'm going to want to stick to neutral. Not this one. I'm not feeling this one. I don't know. I'll show it to you guys anyways. It's the... Is it Beauty Bay? Yes, it's Beauty Bay. This is the Nude 16 Shadow Palette. This looks like this. We'll see if the colors are true to what they actually are in the video. I haven't used this one yet. There's going to be a couple palettes that you're going to see me use that I haven't actually used yet. And that's one option. Have you guys seen the... Well, by the time I post this, I hope it isn't too far past that. The new Natasha Denona palette that came out. I Need It Warm. What are your thoughts? Leave your comments down below. I also have the same Beauty Bay Nude, but in the 9-pan palette, so this is probably a little bit more travel friendly. And the other contender I have is the Beauty Bay Rich 9 pan as well as the 16 pan palette. So this one's definitely more berry leaning. I don't think I want that for my passport pictures, so I'm going to show you guys the 16 palette one. I'm not going to use it. I just realized, yeah, this is definitely more pink than what I want. I also have the Supreme Nudes Artist Couture palette. This one has always been very handy for me because I feel like I can easily do a look with this palette as well. You know what? This is the one we're going to use. We're going to use the Supreme Nudes Artist Couture palette instead. Sorry, Beauty Bae. We'll try you another day. Alright, so, by the way, between colors, I am going to be using my Sigma color switch pad. So, I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I'm going to start by, I think I want to start by applying like the mid-tone shade on my lid. Now, you're going to notice my lids are hooded, so I do have to work with that. I'll explain my application as I go through. So I'm going to take just a fluffy blending brush. This is the Morphe S400 domed blending. They have such long names. But any fluffy blending brush that you like to use. And I'm going to go into, let's see, just looking at the tones here. I think I'm going to go into Statuesque just to kind of see what that's going to look like first. I like to apply my eyeshadow in different ways depending on what I'm doing. So I'm just going to make sure I have enough and tap off the excess. And alright, so you're going to see what I do for my eye look. I don't really like it when people just concentrate on the, what is this, the mobile lid, I guess? I feel like you have so much real estate between the actual lid and the brow. Why not use it? And especially if you have hooded lids, you're going to end up using this area to be able to see what you're doing. So what I like to do, I do raise my eyebrows just to start applying the color. So I'll tap it in where I want. And then I'll remember I'm lifting my brows. I'm just going to go in a little bit. I think I grabbed a brush that was a little bit too fluffy. And I do look down as well sometimes. Once you kind of have the contour of your eye kind of memorized, not to say that you can't do it without looking, but you don't have to look as much. You just have to make sure you're starting to place it in the wrong place, in the right place, not the wrong place. So I lift my eyes to apply the color to make sure it gets in everywhere, and then I relax them to see what it's actually going to look like, because I'm not going to walk around everywhere like this. I wish I could, because then I'd have Botox and my forehead would be beautifully smooth, but maybe someday. So now that it's relaxed, I can see that this is how much is actually going to show up. You saw how much I applied, probably the width of the brush, but because I have hooded lids, you're not going to see all of that. So I'm going to start blending it now, and I'm going to move upwards a little bit. You are going to notice with my looks, I do like I said, to use that area. So blending is always going to be your friend. And remember, because we did set the eyeshadow primer, this is going to blend out a lot easier. Something I also like to do is I'll take that same color and I'll kind of apply it on the outer V section here. I swear I should have used a smaller brush, but I don't know why I forgot my brushes upstairs. I'm filming in the spare room that we have in the basement of the house. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in small circles and I'm following kind of like a C shape on the outer half, just to bring that in and up and blend it. And because it is a fairly light color, you don't have to be very precise with your placement. It is very forgiving. The darker I go with the colors, the smaller the brushes that I use. Alright, and I'm going to bring this out a little bit more. But let me know if you guys have any specific palettes you want me to show you or do looks on. I do feel like sometimes I'm not the most creative with eyeshadow looks, but I'll try. I'll push myself for you guys. And especially if I'm not going to go out, they can be a lot more exciting. But today, since I am getting my passport pictures done, I do want to keep it a little bit more toned down. And I am just going in to build the layers. So I go in a bit more. I want to match the other one I have going on the other side. Alright, so you can see some of the color come through. Let's see if I have a smaller blending brush. And let's see. I totally left my... I have some refer brushes upstairs that I like to use, and I completely forgot them. Alright, so I'm going to go in with a slightly smaller blending brush now. I don't know if you guys can see this. This is the Morphe S401 Tapered Blending Brush. Again, just a smaller fluffy one. And I'm going to go in with a slightly darker color this time. So let's try out, I'm going to mix Transcend and Create. I'm just going to mix them. I think something we tend to forget is that we can mix colors too, you know. You don't have to just use the one that comes as it is. So I'm basically just focusing on this outer half, again with the small circles following that C shape, and kind of going upwards, not straight at a, what is this, like a horizontal? No. Anyways, not kind of like straight at my eye, but angled towards my eyebrows. And I'm blending and moving that up a bit so it blends with that. Notice I'm not really lifting my eyelids anymore. I do sometimes just to make sure I get in all the way. But you are going to want to do most of your look with your eyebrows relaxed so you can actually see where the powder is going to be in like the final look with your hooded lids. So again, I squint, I lift, start applying, and I'm fanning it out in those small circular motions. And see, when I relax, it's gone. So I'm going to want to make sure that you use that upper lid space. I'm going to try to keep this as simple as possible. It's really hard for me to not end up with like full glam glitter and sparkles when I'm done. But I'm going to try. And lastly, I'm just going to go into this shade called Engrave. I'm reading this backwards, so if I read them wrong, whoops. But reading backwards is probably a skill. And I'm just darkening up that outer corner. But this time I'm not going up as much. I'm focusing it just on the small bottom lid portion here. Bringing it up a tiny bit, just so it blends in with those second set of shades that we chose. Alright, again, trust the process. This is going to look better, I promise. Now I'm going to grab a flat brush, which I hope I have. We're going to use this one. So this is a Morphe S402 rounded packing, and as it says, it's just a little packing brush. It's flat. These are going to be great just to lay down color that you're not really fluffing out and blending out. And I'm going to go for, I guess I'm going to go for the lightest color here, which is going to be Canvas. Scary. You know what? That's a lie. I'm going to mix Canvas with Statuesque, because I feel like Canvas is going to be a little bit too light for the look I want. So I'm just mixing the two. I'm going to start laying that down at the beginning of my lid here. And I'm going to bring it up a little bit. So I apologize in advance. Being my first video, I've been talking too much. It's probably going to be like an hour long, and I hope to edit it down. So you guys are going to miss some of my great jokes. Just kidding, no you won't. But I'm not sure what the camera cut off the first time, so I'm just applying those light colors here. And I don't do a cut crease, but I do bring it in a little bit more. So towards where the hooded lid part comes down. And as promised, I'm going to try to blend out those two sections. So I'm going to grab this Transcend and the Statuesque shades, and I'm going to try to blend this out here a little bit more, just so the transition is a little bit smoother. I have to remind myself not to talk so much in the future videos. Half an hour goes by really quickly. And the funny part is I'm very introverted. I don't really like to talk much, but I guess I can talk to myself a lot. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? And I'm just going to go back with a big fluffy brush and apply some of that warmer mid-tone color that we used. Just a little bit to the very top here. just because it fans out the color a little bit more and it makes the transition a little bit more smooth. You can see that already looks a little bit different. Toned everything down slightly bit. Sometimes I like to focus underneath the beginning of the brow hair just to bring in the color. But for now, I think I'm happy with the eye color. We're going to leave it at that. Now we get to go back to the face. This is going to be fun. So for my face, I'm actually going to use liquid foundation. I was debating using powder or liquid, but I have a couple things to do before I can actually go take my pictures. So we're going to use liquid. Now what I like to do for liquid foundation, I'm going to use the Estee Lauder, but I'm always between shades, so I'm going to have to probably mix. I do like to match to my chest or my neck. I personally don't match to my face. I know sometimes our face can be a different color than the chest because sunblock use, but I'm going to try to match to my chest, and I'm going to try to sit up as much as I can so you guys can see that. But so right now I'm going to swatch out the shade Rattan. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. It's 2W2. If I am light enough, I might be able to get away with just using this one, but usually I mix. That's probably too much, but I'm going to let it sit there for a second and oxidize. This foundation is great, but it does get slightly darker. And I totally forgot to bring like Kleenexes too. I'll remember next time. And I'm going to swatch out the shade Fawn as well. So again, this is the foundation, this shade Fawn 3W1.5. I do find that my skin tone is more neutral, slightly warm leaning, but it's hard for me to find a good match with foundations typically. You can probably see already a difference with that Fawn one. It does look a little bit more yellow. I think this is going to be the winner, but we're going to give it a few seconds there. I wish I had Kleenexes to wipe my hands with. And what I like to do is I like to apply my foundation with a brush. I'm not a big sponge fan. I feel like at the end of the day, a sponge is a sponge, so it's going to soak up some of the product. And these foundations are expensive, but that's not the point. I do feel like it's going to take up some of the product, so you end up using more, even though the application looks like it's less. So I'm just going to blend this out with my finger a little bit to see. I mean, neither of them is perfect. I'm going to mix them on my hand. So with liquid foundations, you can buy the pump for these ones. I'm going to be more consistent. Hold on at this side. You can buy the pump for these ones, but I just haven't come around to it. So I do like to apply some on the back of my hand. If you have a little mixing palette, you can apply it there as well. Just going to apply a very small amount. And like I said, I'm going to mix them. Which one's this one? Fawn. You know what? I might try to just use Fawn today because it does seem like the Rattan one is a little bit too orange for my liking. You know what? I'm going to mix them just a little bit. Even though this is a full coverage foundation, I don't like to use too much of it. Alright, so you're going to see, I'm going to show you side by side. The Rattan one is the light one, and the Fawn one is the darker one. I'm going to try to just use this much. You can, of course, reapply. But so, just a small amount, and I'm going to mix it. First I mix it with my finger to make sure that they have swirled together. So that's mixed together, and now I'm going to take my blending brush. It is slightly dense. These are really great. I love these. I got these on Amazon. But so I'm just going to take that foundation and apply it to the brush itself. So I'm going to make sure to coat my brush. This is a good, you're going to notice a lot of makeup artists do this as well. And you're going to start applying just to the middle of the face. I don't think I mixed enough. I'm going to have to make more. I'm going to apply to the middle of the face here. I had some left over from my finger. And because the middle of my face has the most discoloration and redness, I like to apply it to the middle with a stippling motion first. And then I drag it out to the rest of my face. So it just depends how much coverage you're looking to get. I'm going to mix some more again. I might have mixed a little bit too much the second time around. But again, I'm just going to make sure to coat all of my brush going around. And I'm just going to place it in the middle, and then we're going to drag it out afterwards. Just picking up the rest that I had on my hand, just to place it where we're going to want. So again, around the nose, around the mouth, in the cheeks area, and the forehead. So now I'm going to drag it out. So I'm going to drag it out to the rest of the face. And to the borders, to the perimeters of the face as well. Make sure I pick up everything from the back of my hand. And because we moisturize really well, even though this can be a drying foundation because of how heavy duty it is very full coverage. The fact that we moisturize is going to help a lot. So now that it's been laid out everywhere, I'll go through and I'll do that stippling motion again just to make sure I get rid of any brush strokes that might have been left behind. And drag it down on the neck as well, that way you don't have like a strong demarcation line. And you're going to notice I did set it up right now so that it's more of the medium coverage. Any imperfections we're going to cover as well with the concealer. So just stippling, and this is how I am able to achieve a more natural looking foundation with this full coverage foundation. So just making sure I got it everywhere. I could go in with another layer. I don't think I will. And my skin feels very breathable as well. I'm just going to take off a little hair here. Sometimes less is more. Sometimes. Alright. Gosh, I hope that looks good for the passport pictures. So now that the foundation is out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and apply my concealer. So I like to use two concealers, one to conceal and one to brighten. The first one that I'm going to be using is this e.l.f. Hydrating Camo Concealer, which is the one that comes with a white cap. I'm going to be using the shade Light Beige, which is probably a little bit too light, but we should be able to get away with it. Yeah, we're just going to use this one. And I'm going to grab a brush to apply the concealer, spread it out. This is the Pro Stippling Concealer Brush from the Sephora brand. See the angle it has there? So I'm just going to take that concealer, mix it before you apply it, because sometimes it does separate if it's been sitting for a little while. And I'm going to apply it to the inside of underneath the eye, as well as the outside, and a little bit down here where I still have redness. So that's all I'm going to apply. I feel like I see people doing makeup videos and they apply so much concealer, but to each their own, of course. I just could never, because it would crease and look terrible on me. So I'm going to start spreading this out very gently, and a little bit goes a long way with this. And I'm going to drag this towards the bottom as well as upwards to spread it out. And I'm going to go from the beginning of where I applied it, following the line that I want of the shape for my eye look to be today. I'm going to swoop that up, and I'm just going to brush this to blend out any lines. And this isn't the only blending we're going to do. Same with the one underneath. I don't like to go super in the crease of my nose, because again, that's where any dryness is going to show up right away. I apply some right on my chin here under my lip. I'm going to do the same on this side, spread it out a little bit, make sure to cover the darkness, and spread it out up, and then I'm going to achieve the shape I want. And kind of blend that out. Alright, so now that I've laid out the concealing concealer, I'm going to go in with my brightening concealer. So this is just the Maybelline eraser in the shade, I think it used to be called Neutral. It's the shade, you probably can't see it, but it's the shade 150. I'm just going to click up enough, and I'm going to apply it to the inner of the under eye part. Just make sure I have enough coming out. There we go. I'm going to apply right here on my cupid's bow, and I'm going to apply this one onto my forehead here. Because I don't need a lot of concealing on my forehead, I don't apply the heavier concealer there, I just put the brightening one. So again, I'm going to spread this out. And I'm being very light with my brush. So I apply the most pressure there, and then as I spread out, it's less pressure. And you can bring this down here to blend it out more. Spread the one under the chin. The one on the forehead as well, you're going to drag towards the center of the face, towards the nose. With a very gentle hand. And I'm going to close up a little bit so you can see, maybe you can't see, but it's very normal to get streakiness with a brush. So what I like to do is I will take the same brush that I did my foundation with, the fluffy one, and then I'm going to do the stippling motion to blend everything in and get rid of any streaks. So the same way that some people would do this with a beauty blender or some sort of sponge, I do it with the blending brush. When I go under the eye, I look up and out, so in the opposite direction of where my brush is. And again, with that stippling motion, you're going to be able to blend in everything and get rid of the brush strokes themselves. And because I am using the same brush that I did my foundation with, it's probably going to have a tiny bit of foundation on it. So it's going to help those two things blend in even better. Alright. Should have probably clipped some of my stray hairs. I slept with my hair wet last night, and I'm always scared to do that because I've heard you can get sinus from it. But my curls this morning, they never look like that, so I'm not saying I'm going to do it again, but I don't know. I'm tempted. Alright, so now that the concealer is done, I'm going to go ahead and set my under eye. I'm going to use the Bye Bye Pores Pressed powder by It Cosmetics. I've used it a lot, as you can see. And I have a KVD Shade and Light brush. I use both ends, but really it's just, I'm going to focus on using the angled side first, the fluffy one. So I'm going to take some of that. And I like to bake, but what I like to do is I like to set a thin layer of translucent powder before I bake, because if you go straight in with the thick baking stuff, it's just going to clung into dry stuff, dry patches. So I'm going to make sure I smooth out any lines under my eye, and then I'm going to go in with the translucent powder just to lightly set that area. I'm going to do the same on the other side, get rid of any lines, smooth them out, and apply the translucent pressed powder. I'm also going to apply this to the part that has the, the big visible pores, a little bit on the chin, and whatever's left over on the forehead. So now that I've laid down my thin layer of translucent setting powder, I'm going to go in with the one that I'm going to bake with. I'm using my KVD translucent setting powder. I feel like this is such a gem and people sleep on it, and I don't understand why, so I always try to get people to get onto it. I'm going to be using, this is just a Sephora blending brush. It's dry, by the way, not wet. I don't think I would have the consistency to go and wet it before filming. So I'm not going to do this angled towards the camera because it's loose powder, it's going to fall. But I'm just dipping it in to cover the sponge there. And I'm going to squint and look up a little bit and apply it to the area that I'm going to bake under. This is the only thing you're ever going to see me use a sponge for, is to bake. And it's always going to be dry. I like the sponge because it's actually quite soft. It's not too soft, and it's not, I wouldn't say it's firm by any means. So I think it's just very helpful to get into those areas. I'm going to apply a layer underneath my eyes. I'm also going to try to pinch the tip and grab like a line, and I'm going to put this towards the center of my nose to bake a bit, again on my Cupid's bow, and you can drag this out a little bit down if you wanted to kind of try to bake those folds around the lips. It's not something I normally do, but we'll try it out today. And just make sure you apply enough under the eyes. Now I'm going to let that sit and do its thing. and I'm going to go and apply powder to the rest of my face. So I'm going to go ahead and take the Sephora Microsmooth Multitasking Baked Face Powder in the shade Beige. I do normally use either beige or I think it's called Sand. It's this is shade 25, the other one is shade 30. But I'm basically just going to go in and pat the brush in to coat it. So it looks like this. And I'm going to start pressing it into the skin to set the rest of the foundation that I applied. And I'm not going to touch the area that I baked because that's baking. And I feel I have a hair in my eye. So I'm just going to apply this everywhere. Drag it down, of course. The forehead. Now what I like to do, I have a hair in my eye and it's going to bother me, but what I like to do now is to give the baking more time, I like to do my brows. Okay, so I'm just using the ABH Brow Dip Pomade in the shade Ash Brown. It looks like this. I'm going to take an angled liner brush, and this pomade is drying out, so I need to get another one. And I'm going to brush my brows up. It's just how I like to do it, just so it gives me a better idea of the shape I want to get. I'm going to apply this to the areas that have the most sparsity. And this is going to look as heavy as you make it look. So I know we're all terrified of the block brows from 2016, but I've been using it since that time. And I like to think that I didn't have block brows, but because I tried not to apply it that way. So I'm just applying it to the tail ends of my brows. And as I mentioned, I use a combination of powder and pomade, and I'll show you what that looks like here. It's just, again, to fill in the sparse areas. Alright. So now I'm going to take the powder itself. I have been playing around with different powders, so hopefully this looks good. But it's a combination of the same one. So this is the ABH Medium Brown Duo Powder Brow Powders. I don't know if these are still in circulation, but honestly, just any brow powder that you like to use. I'm going to grab the darker one first, and I'm going to use this to set the pomade that I just applied. I think a lot of people sometimes complain that their pomade looks shiny, and this is just how I would accomplish not having shiny brows. Again, I'm going to apply it to the tail end there, the dark color. And now I'm going to go in with the lightest color here of the duo. Make sure I have enough there. And I'm going to start applying it to the front half of my brows. And I like to brush horizontally upwards at the beginning, as well as vertically upwards. And on the bottom, I do like to try to make it line up a little bit more so it looks cleaner. As I mentioned, I do have very bushy brows right now because I haven't tweezed in months. But bushy brows kind of are having the moment right now, right? So why not? And I'm going to do the same. I'm going to apply it to the inner half, the beginning of the brow on the other side. You're going to notice I'm going to line up the bottom, brush up, and then horizontally or vertically up as well. I mean, they do look thick, but I don't think they're blockish. Maybe I have brow blindness. I am working with a lot of brow right now, though, which I normally don't. Alright, so now that the brows are, I wouldn't say done, we'll apply gel later, but they're done for now. I'm going to go ahead and remove the baking that I did. So I'm going to grab that domed fluffy brush, and I'm going to sweep away all that baking we did. I'm going to drag it down, kind of like a backward 7, so down and up underneath the eye. And this would be a 7 for me, maybe it's a backward 7 for you. And just sweep it off the areas that we did the baking on. Now we're going to go in and apply our bronzer. We're going to be using the Essence Contouring Palette. Now I know this is contouring, but it's technically, I'm going to be doing bronzing. It's not the most pigmented, so you can get away with it, and it is a little bit more warm leaning than typical contouring palettes. So I dipped into both, and I'm gonna start applying on the, I have the hollow here, so I'm gonna go a little bit higher up. You're gonna notice it is pigmented, but it's not the most pigmented. I'm also going to apply this on the top corner on my forehead here. On the other one as well. And I think I tried to do too much the first time, so I'm gonna have a fun time editing this video and cutting down so much talking. Alright, so kind of that C shape, as you can see. Whatever fits your face shape, though. This is just what works for mine. Now, I also like to grab a little bit and on the flat side of that angled brush, apply it underneath the tip of my nose here. And I will also do under my chin. And I'll drag out the excess underneath the rest of my jawline. Yes, I do know I have to remove this yet. I haven't forgotten. If you were being extra, you could also chisel out the rest of the nose, but because I don't have the time, the recording time for that, I'm just going to take whatever's excess and apply it on the sides here. Just so it gets a little bit more narrow of a look. Another day I will do that better, pinky promise. But I'm curious to see who is actually going to watch this till the end because it's so dang long. Leave a comment. You know what? Leave a corn emoji if you have stayed till the end. Is there a corn emoji? If there isn't, leave like another vegetable just so that I know you stayed until the end. I appreciate you if you did. And you know what? Sometimes I like to play these videos as I get ready, so if it's long, then it's long. Alright, so now that the face is bronzed up, I look funny, but again, trust the process. We're going to go in with the blush. Now, today I'm going to be using this Tarte, it's more of a dome shape brush. I don't know that this is meant to be a blush brush, but I like to use it for that purpose. Because I am trying to keep the makeup relatively neutral, not too scary, so when I look at this years down the road, I won't be saying what was I thinking. I'm going to try to apply blush, not brush, light there. So let's see. I'm going to go in with one of the Too Faced Cloud Crush blushes. And just, let me see which one I'm going to use. Alright, I'm going to use the Too Faced Cloud Crush Blurring Blush in the name Head in the Clouds, which is this one. I'm going to apply it on the angled parts of that brush. Tap out any excess. And I like to apply it in this area, kind of like the highest part, blending it underneath and bringing it to the front, which is what you're going to see me do. So apply it there, bring it to the front a bit. And I will try to layer this up because it doesn't show up as pigmented as I thought it would. Not a problem. We can always add, but it's harder to remove. Something I also like to do is I like to apply the blush. I bring it up to my temples. And I'll do the same on the other side. Man, I gotta get these little stray hairs in order next time. So I like to bring it up under my eye generously, and then I'll bring it forward a little bit on the cheek. And then I bring it up on the temple, so I go up the side towards where that bronzer was applied just to blend it in. And again, I will apply some underneath the nose, the exact same places I did the bronzer on, under the chin. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and blend out the area underneath my eye a bit. I'm going to blend out the area underneath my eye a little bit. It looks a little bit harsh right now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a very narrow pencil brush, that's what this is called, And I'm going to go back into like the mid-tone that we used for the transition up above. So I'm going to use the shade Statuesque here to start off with. And I'm going to just blend that on the lower lash line to make sure it looks a little bit more smooth. I'm also going to use Transcend. I'm going to mix them both. And I'm going to try to stick with the darkest on the outer corner and bring it in. I'm going to repeat the same on the other side. And I do like to come down a fair amount just because you do get some natural creases underneath the eyes. So I find if you blend eyeshadow on them, it does make it a little bit much more forgiving. And you can blend out any edges that you think might need to be blended out a bit. I'm going to go into that canvas shade and I'm going to apply that on the inner corner. I guess I ended up doing an all matte look accidentally. Okay, this is definitely more yellow than I wanted it to be, so we're going to fix that in a second. I do have this little 3-color palette from Makeup Forever. These are colors that you can custom, not the colors, but the palettes, you can combine them. So because this is looking very yellow, I'm actually going to take some of the pink. No, just kidding, it looks more pink. I'm going to take some of the yellow and of the white, apply that in the inner corner. I probably put too much, but you know what? We're going to work with it. We're going to have to even them out a bit there. I'm going to drag that in. Alright, and oh no, I totally put powder on my face. That's alright. Brush it off. I'm going to go ahead and apply liner and lashes off camera, and I will be back. Okay, so if you notice things look a little bit different, I put lashes, liner, mascara, that's it. I had to go eat because I was hungry, so last week's left off, I think I had added to my blush. In case I didn't do it, or in case it gets cut out during editing, I used the ABH Peachy Love Trio blush, and I mixed these two together just to add a little bit more. I felt like it was missing. And highlighter. I should have done this before I applied my setting spray, but I'm doing it now, so it's alright. No harm. And I'm just going to use the Luxe 522 Tapered Highlighter Brush. So it's just this fluffy, domed brush. It's anything that you like to use is fine. And I'm actually going to go in, I don't want like a super blinding highlighter, but I really do like this One Size Wicked blush. I'll show it to you guys as well. And I feel like this one can be very subtle if you want it to be, or you could build it up. I don't remember hearing anyone talking about this one, but I thought it was very nice. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to apply here. You're going to notice I don't really go in under the eye area. I find a lot of beauty YouTubers will apply their blush up to here, and I don't want to emphasize my pores. So I'll stop right at the corner where my eye starts pretty much, and I'll do like a small C shape here with the main focus being right in that corner, similar to where we applied the blush. So I'm just going to pat this in. Can go in with a little bit more, and I'm going to bring it up above the brow, but that's pretty much the only place I put highlighter. So I just want it to reflect when the light catches it, but I don't want it to be visible when I'm talking to you up front like this. So if I turn, you should be able to see it. And I'm going to repeat the same step on this side, kind of just taking the excess up here, making sure to blend it in. And not sure if the camera catches it well, but you should still be able to see it. Now somewhere else that I do like to apply highlighter, and I do use a different brush for this just because I want it to be a little bit more fine and it will be more detailed, is I'm going to use a fanned out brush like this. This one is from Sephora. This is the Pro Fan brush, but I've done this as well with like a more narrow pencil brush. So I'm just going to take some, very small amount, and then I'm going to do a line here between the eyes on the bridge of the nose. I'm going to take the brush horizontally, and I'm going to do a little bit on the tip and on the cupid's bow. The one on the nose you can overdo, so just be very gentle. And I'm just going to take some into the brows here. Not the brows themselves, but the brow bone. And you know what? Why not? I'm going to put some on the inner tear duct as well. So just right here. I know this was pretty much an all matte look, but I really like how the light catches the highlighter when you put it on the inner corner of the eye. Maybe you can see a difference, maybe you can't, but I really like how it looks. Again, you can make this a lot more detailed if you use more of a pencil brush instead of this fan one that I'm using. And that should be it for highlighter. I can sandwich this again with another layer of setting spray, which I think I will do actually. So I'm just going to spray again. And I got my fan this time, so I can actually use it. And you'll see in my other videos when I go in and do it in the proper order. I am very generous typically with my setting spray. So this is just to kind of marry the highlighter to everything. I normally like to match my gloss to the blush that I'm wearing, or for it to complement the eyeshadow as well. So I think I'm going to do this peachy color. I like to hold it up if it's transparent. I like to hold it up against my skin just to see how it's going to look. Could otherwise go for the stone color. This is the Maybelline Lifter Gloss. This is the color Stone, and this is the color Peachy. I think I'll go with Stone for today. Both of them would have complemented well. And I do like that these are very pigmented, so I don't really put anything underneath them. Perfect. And of course you could do the finger test. I like to just, you know, you could go like that to take off any excess. I just normally do that like in the thumb part of my thumb. And what else am I forgetting? Oh, I did apply also a, it's called Infinite Beige. It's just a beige liner to the waterline. I don't know if you could see, but it did bring in some brightness, so my eyes look slightly bigger. You can easily touch that up as well. But what I like to do is I bring it into the inner corner, and I don't make it touch the outer edge of the waterline. I just kind of make it fade away. Alright guys, so this is the final look. I hope you liked it and you learned something new. If you have any questions or any products you want me to see do, let me know. Leave a comment, like, share, and subscribe. I'll see you next time.